welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I've had no requests for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Members in the chamber, please be aware that we are all on camera and that you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking, and please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Members taking part remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raise hand icon to indicate when you'd like to speak. Please remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. Moving on to the agenda, we go straight to agenda item 1, attendance and apologies. Chris, have you got any apologies, please?
Yes, Chair, we've had apologies from Councillor Linda Clarkson.
Thank you, Chris. Right, agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Members, do you have any interest to declare? No interest? Okay then. Right, we move on to agenda item 3, which is minutes to the Licensing Committee, 14th to the 7th, 22, which is on pages 3 to 6 of your agenda pack. Members, can you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I'll take them as approved. No? Okay then, we go on to agenda item 4, which is minutes to the Licensing Committee, 24th of the 11th, 22, which is on pages 7 to 10. Again, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, we'll take them as approved. Okay, thanks, members. Right, we go on to agenda item 5, which is Public Protection Service Enforcement and Compliance Policy Update, which is on pages 11 to 46 of your agenda pack. I'm going to hand you over now to Claire Howells, Team Manager, Licensing and Trading Standards. Could you please deliver the report?
Sorry, Councillor Davis, it's Dan Morelli. I'm going to take...
Oh, sorry, Dan, I didn't realise you was doing the report this morning.
Yeah, through the first report. So, just by way of introduction, I'm Dan Morelli. I head up the Public Protection Department for the Council. I'll try to display the report on the screen, if you bear with me a second. Is that big enough for members, or shall I expand?
Looks fine from where I'm sat. I should got the members in the chamber.
Is that okay?
I'd like it expanded, please.
Okay. Is that okay, Councillor Parish?
That's lovely, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just to take you through the paper relates to an update to the Public Protection Service Enforcement and Compliance Policy. The Council put in place its current policy whilst it was in a partnership arrangement with Blaenau Gwent Council to deliver public protection services in collaboration, and an enforcement policy is a requirement by law for regulatory departments within local authorities to have in place. It sets out the requirements and the approach and the framework that regulatory services should follow in delivering their enforcement responsibilities when exercising these provisions. And the public protection policy relates specifically to the environmental health, trading standards and licensing functions. As I said, this policy was put in place initially when we were in a collaboration with Blaenau Gwent. Since 2019, that collaboration came to an end, and we have now brought the service back in-house. This has necessitated a change to that policy. So the update that has been undertaken and the review of the policy has primarily looked, as I said, to bring the policy back in-house, so to rebrand the policy, also to provide some clarification where that was felt it was required, and also to ensure it remains legally compliant as well. So there are some elements within the report there which demonstrate the importance of an enforcement policy because of the significance of sanctions that can be taken against businesses and individuals. Also the fact that our enforcement action is often subject to considerable scrutiny as well, so we need to make sure that we adopt the principles of fairness, proportionality and other principles set out in the Regulator's Compliance Code. The review of the policy has confirmed that it does remain legally compliant and relevant, so our approach has not changed, although the policy has been amended as I described. The draft policy that I've shared, I've provided 2 copies for members. One, which is the policy which will be presented, if approved, to Cabinet, the next stage, and one of the policies also with the track changes, just so members can see exactly what amendments have been made to the policies, rather than having to undertake a compare and contrast exercise themselves. The updates to the policy haven't been subject to consultation, as the initial policy and the approach were subject to an extensive public consultation previously, and as there have been no substantial changes to the approach, that was not deemed to be necessary. It is worth also saying that the update does also include within the scope now civil parking enforcement, because that wasn't previously specifically referenced within the policy, so we've just brought that into line with this as well. So the licensing committee are being asked to consider the policy and approve it. And that's the update.
Can I just jump in a minute, Dan? Can I direct this to Justine? Have I a prejudicial interest in this as an owner of a food business?
No, you haven't, because this is a policy.
Just wanted to double check, Justine. I don't want to be doing anything wrong. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Haynes, for that. Members, any questions? Any comments? No? Anybody in the chamber? No? Okay then, the recommendation is on page 13 of your agenda. Members, do you agree the recommendations? Anybody against? Or anybody abstaining? Okay then, thank you, members. Right, then we go on to agenda item 6, private hire and hackney carriage licence fees for 2023-24, following consultation, which is on pages 47 to 54 of your agenda pack. I'm not sure who's going to lead this report. Is it you, Claire, or Dan?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just share my screen, if you can just bear with me 1 moment.
Thanks, Claire.
And would someone be able just to confirm that they can see the screen?
I can see it okay.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Parish, would you like me to enlarge the screen, or is that okay for you?
Well, if you could enlarge it a little bit, it would be wonderful. Thank you.
No problem.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you.
No problem at all. So the first report this morning for General Licensing Committee is to provide an update to members on the consultation that took place for the proposed private hire and hackney carriage licence fees for 23-24. Section 3 of the report provides an overview of the calculation of the fees which were considered by members in November 2022. Paragraph 3.3 of the report gives an overview of the number of current licensed hackney carriage and private hire licences in Torfaen, but I'd just like to point out that these numbers are subject to change on a daily basis as we have new vehicles and new drivers come on board and we have licences cancelled. As you are aware, under the Constitution for Torfaen Council, the setting of fees levied for licences falls to the Licensing Committee for determination. In November 2022, the committee agreed that the licence fees that should be consulted on, and Appendix 1 of the report shows those fees. As required, a statutory notice was placed in a local newspaper providing information about the proposed licence fees for 23-24 and gave advice on the way in which consultation responses could be made. The statutory period of 28 days was given for any responses to be submitted. and in addition to the advert that went in the local newspaper, information was placed on the Council's website and a letter or email was sent to all relevant licence holders along with a copy of the statutory notice. Consultation ended on the 18th of January 2023, and I can update the committee that there were no responses received in relation to the proposed fees. Appendix 2, as provided in the report that came before members in November 2022, provides a comparison of the fees that we are proposing for 23-24 against those fees that are charged by neighbouring authorities. Members were also asked if they wish to consider a reduction in fees for wheelchair accessible vehicles and fully electric vehicles, and it was proposed that a reduction of £80 for new vehicle applications and £70 for renewal applications were put in place. As previously stated, there was no representations to the proposed fees received during the consultation period. Therefore, the proposed fees which were consulted on will come into effect from the 1st of April 2023. It is therefore recommended, and members are asked to note, that the proposed fees which were consulted on will come into effect from the 1st of April following full consultation, and note the fact that no representations to the proposed fees were received. Thank you, Chair. That's my first report.
Thank you, Claire. Members, any questions, comments? No? Okay then, thank you. The recommendations are on page 49 of your agenda. Members, do you agree with the recommendations? Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Okay then, thank you, members. We'll now move on to agenda item 7, which is approval of proposed fees 2023-24, scrap metal, street trading, animal establishment and sex establishments, which is on pages 55 to 84 of your agenda pack. Claire Howells, Team Manager, Licensing and Trading Standards, could you please deliver your report?
Thank you, Chair. So the second report for General Licensing Committee this morning is in relation to the approval for the proposed fees for scrap metal, street trading, animal establishment licensing and sex establishment licensing for the period 23-24. Certain licence fees are deemed to be non-statutory in that local authorities can determine what or whether to charge. As mentioned previously, this report refers to the licence fees in respect of scrap metal, street trading, animal establishment licensing and sex establishments. The background and methodologies around licence fee setting have previously been used to determine a range of licence fees agreed by this committee and is explained in Appendix 1 of the report. The calculated fees are intended to be a fair reflection of the actual costs of administering and enforcing each licence, in much the same way as anyone would expect to pay a reasonable price for the service they receive. It is not possible to achieve full cost recovery in terms of overall licensing functions because some activities do not relate directly to the administration and enforcement of licences. For example, the cost of providing information and advice, and other statutory functions such as Freedoms of Information Act requests. The calculated costs are based on budgeted salary costs for 23-24 in line with the Council's medium-term service and financial plan. Central service apportionments and direct costs such as IT systems are based on the 21-22 actual costs or confirmed costs. Under the Constitution, the setting of fees levied for licences falls to the Licensing Committee for determination. Section 4 of the report provides an overview of the general fee setting principles. For each licence type, there are three main elements that are calculated: the underpinning costs, the specific steps relating to each licence type, from advice to the administration through to the approval of the licence, and the hourly operational costs to the authority for each officer. Licensing officers have received guidance on this process and were tasked with reviewing the underpinning activities and licence process steps in conjunction with the ABS officers who deliver the licensing administration functions. Section 4.2 of the report refers to scrap metal. The proposed fees for both scrap metal collectors and sites have slightly increased. These fees are for a 3-year period. The proposed fees are attached as Appendix 2, and in Appendix 3, a comparison has been given with neighbouring authorities. At the time of writing the report, there was currently 5 scrap metal sites and 5 collectors licensed by the Council. Section 4.2.5 of the report gives an overall impact of the proposed licence fees for renewals that are due in the 23-24 period. Section 4.3 of the report refers to street trading. There are 3 different types of street trading, which are your permanent pitches and rounds, your short-term seasonal trading, and your single-day trading. Although local authorities are not required to do so, separate fees have been calculated to take these different types of trading into account. This is intended to be fairer to those businesses wishing to trade for short periods of time and to encourage applications. There are some slight increases to the proposed fees for 23-24, following a reflection of the changes in time to deal with the types of applications that have been noted since the last fee calculations. The proposed fees are attached as Appendix 4, and a comparison with neighbouring authorities attached as Appendix 5. Section 4.4 of the report refers to animal establishment licensing. Types of licences which are issued by the licensing team include boarding, cat and dog, breeding, and licence to sell pets. The licence to sell pets has replaced what was previously known as the pet shop licences. At 4.4.6 of the report, the proposed licence fees are attached as Appendix 6. 4.4.6 of the report provides an overview of the current number of animal establishment licences which are due for renewal in the 23-24 period, and shows a calculation of the fees for the proposed fees and the anticipated income. Section 4.5 of the report refers to sex establishments. The authority currently has no sex establishment premises, although applications in respect of sex shops have been received in the past. The proposed licence fees are attached as Appendix 7 of the report, and a comparison table with neighbouring authorities at Appendix 8. No applications are expected, and no effect on licence income is therefore expected unless new applications are received. Section 4.6 of the report gives an overview of how the figures are calculated. Therefore, members are asked to approve the proposed licensing fees fall into this committee for determination, or should they not approve the proposed fees, indicate the reasons for not approving those fees as proposed. Thank you, Chair. That's my report.
Thank you, Claire. Members, any questions, comments? No, nobody in the chamber? No. Okay then, the recommendation is on page 61 of your agenda. Do you agree with the recommendations? Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Okay then, thank you, members. We now move on to agenda item 8, which is review of Torfaen County Borough Council's policy in relation to street trading consents, which is on pages 85 to 100 of your agenda pack. Once again, I'm going to ask Claire, the team manager, licensing and trading standards, to deliver her report. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. The third report for consideration by General Licensing Committee this morning refers to a proposal to review the Council's policy in relation to street trading consents. Street trading is regulated by Section 3 and Schedule 4 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982. Under the Act, street trading means the selling or exposing or offering for sale of any article, including a living thing, in a street. But this does not include trading as a peddler under the authority of a peddler certificate, or anything done in a market or fair with the right to hold which was acquired by virtue of a grant, enactment or order. The onus is on the local authority to control street trading as it deems appropriate. The street trading policy, which is currently in place, applies to both public and privately owned land. On the 27th of November 1997, Torfaen County Borough Council adopted Schedule 4 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provision Act 1982 to control street trading by means of prohibited and consent streets. All streets in the borough are designated as either prohibited streets, where no street trading is allowed, or consent streets, where mobile street trading can take place, subject to the trader receiving a consent to trade from the council. At paragraph 3.6 of the report, it lists what the council have resolved to class as prohibited streets, meaning that no street trading can take place on the identified locations. The current policy in relation to street trading has been in place since 2009, and a copy of that policy is attached as Appendix A of the report. There are currently 22 traders who are holders of street trading consents issued by Torfaen County Borough Council. This consists of 19 static traders who trade from one site, for example, a hot food van, and 3 mobile traders who trade by means of an identified route within the borough, again, for an example, an ice cream seller. I provided a bit of an overview of the number of complaints that the team have dealt with over the last 3 years. So in 2020 to 21, the team dealt with 6 complaints, alleging that unlicensed traders were operated in the area. 21 to 22, 5 complaints. And 22-23 to date, there have been 2 complaints received in relation to allegations of unlicensed trading. 4.5 of the report gives an overview of the number and types of applications for street trading that the team have dealt with over the last 3 years. It is proposed to engage with all stakeholders as part of the process to review the current policy in place and to develop an up-to-date policy which meets the needs of residents, visitors and local businesses in the area. The policy will seek to prevent any possible crime, disorder or nuisance associated with street trading and to ensure public safety. 4.2 of the report outlines the proposed process that officers will follow as part of the consultation process. So the first stage is to obtain approval from members to review the current street trading policy in place and to ask members for any initial views in relation to any specific areas of the policy that they think should be reviewed. Step 2 will be to consult with stakeholders to gauge initial thoughts on which areas of the policy, if any, should be subject to review. Following the initial consultation, officers will draft a revised version of the policy, taking into account any comments that have been received. The revised draft policy will then be subject to scrutiny by members of the licensing committee, and approval will be sought from members to consult on the revised draft version of the policy. A further consultation then will take place for a minimum period of 12 weeks. The final stage will be for a final draft of the revised street trading policy to be submitted to licensing committee for approval. It is therefore recommended, and members are asked, to approve the proposed review of the current street trading policy and agree the process as set out in 4.2 of this report, and provide any initial views on the proposed review. Thank you, Chair. That's my report.
Thank you, Claire. Members, any questions or comments? No. Okay, thanks. Claire, when's the cut-off point to provide the views, did you say, on the proposed review for members? Is there a cut-off date?
For the purposes as outlined in the report, I'm asking members if they wish to provide any initial comments today, and then if once the approval for review of the policy if it is agreed, then we will take that consultation period forward. So my ask today is of members if they wish to offer any initial thoughts on any specific areas of the policy be reviewed, then if they could mention it now.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Haynes, got a hand up, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Giles. Yeah, just wondering how you deal with these single event traders that literally turn up an evening, pitch up and trade for a couple of hours and shoot, because there doesn't seem to be anything in the policy that, because they literally advertise the afternoon and turn up that evening. And it seems unfair that they are not paying for a day rate when others are following the rules.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. If we become aware of any traders that intend to trade within the area after hours, sometimes that information is shared via social media and we become aware of it, we will try our best to ensure that an officer can attend the site and speak to the trader. I've done so myself in the past when we've become aware of illegal street trading at 5 o'clock on a Friday night, and I've gone out myself and spoken to the trader and offered advice. If we only become aware of the trading after the event has taken place, we will investigate. As we investigate any complaint, we will try and obtain details, vehicle registration numbers, and we will make contact with that trader to advise that we do have street trading policies in place. A consent is required to trade within the borough of Torfaen, and if found to be trading at a further date, then appropriate enforcement action will be taken.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
But I note your points, and perhaps we should include that within the policy or words to that effect.
That would be good if it is referenced somewhere in there, because it does happen and happens quite a lot. And they tend to advertise at like 3 o'clock and then open up for a few hours in the evening, and sort of, you know, there are other street traders out there paying their licence fees, and they get away with it a lot, and that there just is there's unfairness there for the other street trading licence holders.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes, and your comments are noted. As always, if members do become aware of this activity taking place, whether it be before the event or after the event, please contact the licensing team and then we can investigate and take action as appropriate.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Councillor Haynes. That was a good question. Any other members got any questions or comments they'd like to make before we go to recommendations? Okay then, thank you, members. The recommendations are on page 87 of your agenda. Members, do you agree with the recommendations? Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Okay, thank you, members. We go on to agenda item 8, which is date of the next meeting. I haven't got a date at the moment. Is there one set in the diary, Chris? Or no?
No, we haven't set one up yet, Chair, but we'll let members know.
Okay, thank you, members. Then that's the end of this meeting. Please stay on for the next meeting. Okay, thank you.